Welcome to the show today, guys. Thank you so much for tuning in. We've been rolling more guests just because, I don't know, it's exciting time in the fight for life and liberty in the country right now. And I have found that God is uniting and mobilizing so many people in sort of a united front in what feels like perhaps the most politically significant year in my lifetime, with Roe v. Wade just having gotten overturned, with the left, have you noticed, overplaying their hand, with political alignments lining up in the strangest ways with people who are pro-abortion but anti-vaccine mandates, and then they're rowing up the streams of liberty with pro-life people, and so they're starting to become more pro-life. And there's just so many interesting unifications happening across America with freedom fighters and liberty lovers. And so I love to bring people on the show for whom abortion is a central turning point in their life and a central cause that animates their love for the country and their love for the posterity of this country. And so I couldn't think of anyone better than my new friend Siaka Massaquoi, who's actually running for District 43 in Los Angeles County. He attends Godspeak Calvary Chapel, my home church, though, as you know, we're in the process of moving my family for family health reasons. But it's inspiring to meet people, especially in Los Angeles, who are actually running on platforms like Liberty and like the life of unborn children. I think you're going to enjoy this episode. Buckle up, you're in for a treat. I'm Seth Gruber, and this is Unaborted.
Hey, what's up, Seth? Let's get that in there. We got to get that in there, man. Good to see you again.
Thanks for joining us, man.
Dude, thanks for having me, man. This is I'm happy to see everything that's happening from a media standpoint with this fight too.
Yeah.
And this shows like this is just an example. So
Amen. Well, I mean, you know, we have been drawn to this church for many of the same reasons, of course. And
yes,
for me, you know, that has been meeting and becoming friends with, you know, one of the most outspoken pro-life pastors in the country, who has done more for the lives of the unborn than most pastors could ever say.
Oh yeah.
And it's bittersweet for me as, you know, we're on our way out, but you know, we're always cruising back through for speaking.
Yeah, you're not out yet. You're just not here as consistently.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. Yeah,
never out. Amen. Don't do that.
Yeah. But we met a couple times just because we were sitting close to each other in church.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
And then they
like
mentioned like this comedy bit you were doing, trying to like, you know, actually push back in the culture wars in Hollywood a little bit. Yeah. And then of course I learned that you were running for assembly in California, which, you know, we had our friend Cole Brocato on the show.
Just vote bro. Just vote bro.
Yeah. And he goes
like
to Godspeak too, and he's running in, it's still Ventura County, right?
It's Ventura County.
He's running Ventura County, yes. But both of you incredibly pro-life, and you shared a little bit with me at a Love Life prayer walk we were just both at together. I spoke on that Saturday, and then you were there as well. Thank you. And you were sharing a little bit of your story, and it just struck me. I was like, oh man, while I'm in town, you know, we should talk more because, you know, you have a really powerful story, and God works through stories. Like Jesus, you know, Rob said this to me recently. He said, you know, I'm all for expositional preaching. I got no problem with it. But it is interesting. Jesus didn't preach expositionally.
Yeah.
He told stories.
Yeah.
Now, when he walked with the disciples on the road to Emmaus, he said he walked them through every portion of Scripture and how it testified about himself. But when he was sharing the truth with people, he was telling stories. And stories are a powerful tool to communicate truth and to woo people to the truth. So with all that, introduce yourself, brother.
Hey, I want to talk with you. I was like, yeah, you're right. No. What's up, man? Hi, guys. Siaka Massaquoi here. Some of you guys know me. Go to Godspeak. We're working on Almost Canceled that we announced, which is a comedy show.
Canceled?
Almost canceled, right? I've actually been canceled. Part of organization Hollywood for Freedom. Check us out, HollywoodForFreedom.com. We're our faith-based organization that is, you know, not everything necessarily needs to be just conservative content,
right?
But we're faith-led, and it's good stories. And to your point, as an actor for about 15 plus years in Hollywood, this is what I've always wanted to do, was to tell stories.
Yeah.
And the stories stick in our hearts and in our souls differently than just facts. Right. And so, like I always like to say, the vote is 1/3 of the issue. Culture and that story is 2/3 of the issue.
Yeah.
If we can get that back, we will then be able to take the vote back so much easier.
Yeah,
so
that's
we
right.
need to be telling.
No,
our
that's
stories.
actually. I appreciate you said that. That's actually really well said, Siaka, because while the left has no moral basis to stand on and no statistical or factual basis to stand on for their ideology or their worldview, they are good at articulating a vision.
Yeah.
And so now we would
Word
say, well, that
salad.
vision is socialism, but they're able to sort of euphemize it and make it sound very attractive, whether it's equality, equal pay,
justice
saving the
for all.
planet
Yeah.
for our posterity.
Yeah.
No justice, no peace. Like, and they
not
build
free
this
unless we're all free.
utopian worldview that sounds very attractive, and it sounds like human flourishing. But of course, these are all just euphemisms. None of this is actually good for humankind. But
Not at all.
But the right and conservatives haven't been as good at articulating a vision that they're, of course, of their worldview, of their ideas, but in a vision, in we're going somewhere, in something that's attractive.
Another reason why Godspeak has been such a pivotal role for, me and a lot of what I've done as running for office, standing up in the fight, is because this is an active church.
Yep.
When I took biblical citizenship, Rick Green's class and Patriot Academy, I started to find out that's why, 3% of the population against the most powerful, nation in the world won.
Wow.
Was because we had faith behind, and the church they were active.
Yeah.
And so we need to bring that back up. And the church moved away from the colleges, and then we moved away from Hollywood. Hollywood was set up to tell Christian stories.
Yeah, that's right.
And they moved away from that.
That's right. Yeah, a lot of people don't know that.
A lot of people don't know. And so now
they had to basically get it cleared by Christians
for content. And now we're in a place where Christians are afraid to even make content.
What was that called again, though, by the way?
Hollywood?
No, the specific litmus test. For the code for conduct.
Yeah, it was a code of conduct, and they had like a board that people had to go and they had to read it.
We'll remember it later.
Yeah, right. And so
and some of the best films ever created were that year.
I mean, every Thanksgiving they were showing what the Ten Commandments with Charlton Heston, right? I remember that, and I wasn't again. I didn't grow up completely, super religious. I had some, have a lot of people do in this country, would just have bits and pieces.
Yeah.
But it was just around, and our country was moving away when I look back now, but it still had God in our consciousness in a more open way than today.
Yep.
And Godspeak, to me, speaks to the energy of what we need. Yep. We need that. We need to get back and do things like this. We need to have people in the churches and your pastor leading the way to go, hey, let's put this person in for an office because no one else is running against the Democrat.
Yeah,
no one, and so that's why they have a supermajority.
Yeah,
the church needs to take the lead because our country was founded under these values.
William Wilberforce once said that a private faith that does not act in the face of oppression is no faith at all.
At all.
And most, Christians who say we're not political, we're about the gospel, whatever that means, that they fit that description of Wilberforce. It's a private faith. Meanwhile, you have the oppression of abortion, which slaughters 1 million children in the womb every year. You have the oppression of transgenderism, which interestingly enough, also chops up children. Also chops up children by convincing them that a boy can be a girl can be a boy, and we need to mutilate your body parts in order to make the inside the outside feel more like the inside. This is all a very oppressive agenda, and yet most Christians sit in their churches with their private faith, a very comfortable Christianity, and say, "Praise God for American freedoms and liberties." Well, that's not going to be around much longer unless you start contending.
Well, you know what? Too, right now, and the cool thing about this last 2 years have been amazing. Even though it's been crazy, and we're seeing how corrupt the world is and how corrupt our own country, our government is at times. But what it's done, it's lit a fire in so many men, myself included, that needed to wake up a long time ago.
Yeah, amen.
And to come to a church like Godspeak, you're sitting there looking at action at work, right? And you're that part where it's like, I think a lot of Christians have, and led by pastors that led them astray. Yep.
Mm-hmm.
And in this process, my fiance and I, we started reading the Bible together. And this is the first time I'm reading the Bible. I've read passages.
That's
right?
awesome. No way.
We're reading. We started with Matthew.
During the shutdowns or what?
No, just within the last 6 months.
Wow.
And so as I'm reading this, and when you say a pastor, someone will say, well, we're not about politics, we're about the gospel. I'm like, I just read Jesus said we need to come in here and change this thing up. We can't sit there and be judged by a society of fornicators and that be our standard.
Right.
And I'm sitting there going, wait, how do we not get involved?
Yeah.
And you know the book better than I do, sir, of 30, 40, 50 years of preaching. Like, that's
right.
wild to me.
Yep.
And Pastor Rob, kudos to him and his church and people in here like yourself included. Like, we just, from the day one I first came in here, it just was like, let's go. Like, we need to get ready, get refueled. We're going back out for the week of being,
So speaking of you, Siaka, I don't know a ton of your background. You shared it a little bit with me, enough to where I knew your story would bless other people. But have you always been a radical Christian nationalist, conservative, pro-life activist?
White supremacist. You forgot that part.
Sorry, I forgot that one.
Or I'm the new old blackface.
Or is it the white face? Is it the black face of white supremacy?
I get confused.
We'll get Larry Elder in here.
We'll get Larry on the phone. So I mean, how long have I been in this fight? Like, I got really vocal in 2020.
Have you always been a believer?
Well, no.
Conservative?
So I've been no.
Pro-life?
No.
Tell us your story. Who is Siaka?
Who is Siaka? Siaka is an amalgamation of crazy. No, I grew up single mom. My mom was from another country, Liberia, West Africa, and raised my brother and I in Chicago.
Wow, really?
Yeah, right north of Chicago, Evanston, Illinois.
Lovely place to live.
Oh, it's a great place. And it was back when it was still like
I think of all the cities I would move today, I'd probably pick Chicago in 2022.
Well, not Chicago now, but you want to. I meant Evanston, not Chicago. Evanston, you go further north, man. Come on. You don't want to go to South Side, which is.
You don't want to go out to dinner with Lori Lightfoot?
No, Lori Lightfoot doesn't want to go out to dinner with me. How's that?
By the way, speaking of black people she doesn't like, did you hear her chanting the other day "F Clarence Thomas"?
Oh yeah,
publicly?
Yeah. Like it was on a stage, like she was at a rap concert.
Yep.
I'm like,
F
what?
Clarence Thomas. Yeah.
And then
because
you
of
want
why?
respect.
Because of abortion.
Just to to try to support life.
So Chicago area.
So Chicago area, and my mom worked for the city of Evanston for the health department. So she was in science, got her master's in nursing. So I remember I was sharing a story the other day with my fiance. I remember asking her, like, but aren't those babies? And she's like, no, it's just a clump of cells. Like,
wait. She worked at
no. She worked for, because back in the 90s, it's before it was so open that like cities couldn't technically support abortion. Like, they couldn't be like, here's the pill. So she used to hand them addresses.
Well, right. The abortion pill wasn't brought to America until 2000.
She couldn't even like sit there. They couldn't do it in the office.
Wow.
So she would write like the address and give it to these girls that I like went to high school with.
Really?
And would tell me and told me this was later, but I remember at like 8 or 9 when she was explaining this to me. And I think we all, like your son was saying earlier, we all know. We just pretend not to.
Yep.
And at this age, and I'm like, but they're babies. And she's like, nah, there's clumps of cells. And then I'm like, but
gnarly.
I was like, what about adoption? Like, let them go live over there instead. She
so
goes,
at 9 years old, it didn't sit right.
It didn't sit right. And she was like,
I said this once. I said everyone starts pro-life and only becomes pro-choice when they're indoctrinated into it. Because ideology is a hell of a drug.
Well, because also too,
no one starts pro-choice.
I didn't really completely buy into it. My mom was telling me, even though I was trying to understand the points. And when I brought up adoption, she's like, well, no one's going to take care of those babies. I was like, and again, that's what we always hear, right?
Well, we wouldn't kill them for sure.
Yeah, no, we wouldn't kill them. But it was like, oh yeah, and this is a point
and that
too.
reveals their worldview. It's better to end up dead than poor,
than struggling. Maybe,
Yeah.
We don't even know the truth of that.
And of course,
right?
it's the white liberals now who get to decide
who dies.
Yeah, right. What level of suffering?
And don't forget, Black Lives Matter.
Yeah, exactly. What level of suffering is necessary such that it would have been better for you to have been killed?
Like,
and
this
is one of their major arguments. They say like, oh, those babies are going to end up on the streets. And remember the Freakonomics arguments for abortion decades ago.
That was the thing.
Was that we need abortion, yes, because it will actually solve poverty.
Yes.
And because, gosh, can you imagine all these babies being born in poor families? They're going to have a really rough life ahead of them.
Kind of like,
of course, it's always white liberals writing books that become New York Times bestsellers that make them millionaires.
About
saying,
black folks.
Oh, man, poor people. Ooh, we don't want too many of those.
And you know what's interesting about that? Like, I always say, I didn't say it, she did. Margaret Sanger said we want to eliminate the Negro race. They're like weeds.
Yep.
So we can fill in the gaps of all the nice stories about what abortion means for women all they want. That was the creator of it. If I create a movie or a TV show, you're going to get what I mean in that process, regardless of the characters I put in there to distract you and maybe move it around and get comfortable.
Yep.
But my end goal we see the black population stagnant since 1973. So that's what she wanted to do. That's been her accomplishment.
Yeah, that's right.
Whether people believe it's a healthcare thing, that's not the goal.
Yeah. Yep.
That's not the goal.
Yeah,
so
and we'll get into Sanger later. But so from 9 years old, where does Siaka go?
So 9, and then I'm in school, junior high, high school. But then especially with the abortion thing, you're around this idea of like, it hadn't hit completely, but you're around this idea of like, don't mess up, but if you do, you have a parachute, right? So you kind of have that in your mind's eye. I was fortunate enough to be successful in football in high school and got a full ride to the University of Iowa.
Wow.
Yeah, some people who may know college football, I was Coach Fry's last recruiting class, Hayden Fry. And that's when everything really, when I was thrown into the ocean,
Wow.
And when you, and again, I hopefully tried to convey this, as I don't put this on anyone. Like, it didn't do something to me. Like my choices, I made bad decisions, and I got caught up in alcohol. I got caught up in women, and going in and out of different relationships, sleeping with multiple women, and just kind of. And I thought that was how you were cool. And at the same time, I'm not succeeding on the football.
Isn't that what college all about?
Well, yeah, right. And then you get into the bars easy, and I'm not succeeding on the field like I was in high school. And I had connected my happiness with success on the how people receive me because of my success on the field, not who I was.
Right.
And I wasn't getting it from the field, so I started getting it in the bars.
Yeah.
Right, and attention from women. Right. So that destruction happened. And I got caught up in alcohol, and I came to this realization, I would say God gave me this realization a few years ago, and I hadn't said it out loud until then, but like I chose alcohol over my final. I could have done one more semester playing football.
Wow.
And I ended up choosing that. But I did find acting in college, and right after I was done with school, I was like, I'm getting out to LA, so about 6 months back home in Chicago or Evanston, and then drove out to LA and, started chasing that dream of an actor. But again, I had that God-sized hole, I was still chasing the hurrah in my own way.
Right.
And whether it's working as a server or bartender, or what have you, I'm partying. I'm still kind of doing the same thing that I was doing in college, except it's not free. You got to actually earn it. And so then, you're going through this process again, same type of thing. Now drugs get involved, you get cocaine's in there now. So you're doing all these things, just trying to hold on. At the same time, I'm hustling to auditions, trying to, again, what I didn't realize, I wasn't doing it because I loved it. I was trying to be loved. So going to auditions and standing in front of you to do this part that you hope you please cast me.
Yeah.
That's how I'm presenting myself.
Right.
So it didn't hit me until 2013. I was living in this house that was artist housing, but it was really just a slumlord pad this guy put together in Koreatown, and there was a bunch of people living there, and I had my own room, so I was a cool guy, right? And there was two couples. One of them, they were meth heads, and one were crackheads, and I'm not joking. It sounds funny, you can laugh, it's fine, but that's the facts.
Gnarly.
I came home one night, and I was drunk, and there was ramen noodle on the stove, and I was like, pfft. I started eating it. The meth head couple, the guy comes out, sees me stealing his food because that's what I was doing, and starts yelling at me because I was doing it.
Wow.
And I start getting mad because, well, how dare you yell at me? Right? This is like the chaotic mind of when you're caught up in that stuff. And I'm like, how dare you yell at me? So I'm yelling back at him for yelling at me, for stealing his stuff at the end of the day. The next morning I go downstairs, I totally forgot because I had a little blackout, and the guy living in the basement who was like obese, hated life, and wasn't doing anything he wanted to do was telling me, we decided next time you come home drunk, we're going to kick you out of we're going to ask the landlord to kick you out of the house. And I'm like, we have meth heads and crackheads here, and I'm going to, what am I doing? Right? That's when it hit me, like, I can't keep doing this anymore.
Wow.
And I was fortunate enough to have this other couple, the Scandinavian couple, Ricky and Lars, and where I'm talking to him about it, and Ricky asked me, the female, and she's like, do you think you're an alcoholic? And Seth, like, I've been in and out of jail because of alcohol. I've crashed cars. I've, money, of course, and disappointed family. That's top of it, right?
Right.
And nothing got me to admit it except for this situation. I even woke up in front of dumpsters, dude. And it was like, that wasn't enough. It was just a bad situation.
Right.
And she asked me, and it came out of me like somebody, like you were trying to pull a football out of your throat. But when it came out, like whatever weight I didn't know I was carrying was just lifted just by just admitting it, right? They say power of the tongue.
Yeah.
And just to admit something like that.
Wow.
You know, and then it's like all my walls then were done. They were down. And the guy, he goes, you ever think about going to AA meetings? I'm like, yeah. Like everything's like, yeah, let's go. You know, so from then on, like I'm going to AA meetings and I'm getting what a semblance of a life back together, you know, but like they always teach us in the rooms, you know, it's cunning, baffling, and powerful. And 19 months of sobriety, I'm dating this beautiful woman and money in my pocket. I buy my own car cash. I'm living in a better place. And I drink wine with her again. And the following week, I'm drinking a half a handle of whiskey. We're breaking up. And that was just so I could go to sleep.
Wow.
That's how dangerous this thing is.
Yeah.
I was for God's grace only was out of the rooms for 5 months, not 5 years. You know, and I did enough chaos to go, okay, this I get it.
Wow.
No, okay, this doesn't work. So, you know, March 15th, which is the Ides of March for anybody who knows their Shakespeare, and March 15th, 2016, I go back in the rooms of AA, and you know that was that really solidified a new path of life that God, you know, has been showing me.
Wow.
And then everything just started going from there.
Yeah.
Like my acting career just flew up until the shutdown. That's what I was doing.
Yeah.
Like I was just acting, you know? I didn't have to do the odd bar jobs and all that.
Yeah.
I was living the dream. I was doing like 5 auditions in a day and, you know, just doing all those amazing things that you always dream about doing as an actor. And they shut us down. And, you know, being from the Chicago area and watching since 2010, then purposely turn the South Side into a war zone.
Yeah.
My mom had moved down to the South Side, and the Summer of Love was going on. And, you know, they were shooting a lot of people. And I found out through a friend of mine who used to be a big-time, you know, gangbanger here in South Central, that a lot of those kids that were being murdered in Chicago were child support murders.
Or what?
Child support murders.
Wow.
Because they were doing that same thing out here back in the 90s.
Wow.
And you look at the system that's been set up to, you know, especially in the Black community, but the welfare system, have the kid, the dad goes on the paperwork, and now whether he knows or cares or wants to, the state will take the money they give you from him. If he can't pay, he goes to jail.
Right.
And we know if men aren't around their kids in the first 5 years, they don't have the connection. So it becomes a $1,200 a month bill. If you pay some kid who doesn't go to school anyway $200 to go take care of this problem,
wow,
you just dealt with it. So around the corner from my mom's apartment, a 6-month-old was shot in the stroller. It was like about, I want to say maybe 11 o'clock.
Oh, my gosh.
And I told her, you got to get out of there. And these rioters are going around, and people in the entertainment industry were putting together like accounts to be able to bail people out, funds to be able to bail these criminals out that are destroying small businesses.
Yep.
You know, killing retired Captain David Dorn, trying to defend his store.
Yep.
And they're paying for this. And I'm like, this is the industry I'm in?
Wow. And
I don't want to say I'm a Trump supporter or conservative for the last 4 years because I'm afraid I won't work.
Right. Wow.
It didn't add up anymore.
Yeah.
You know, and me and my best friend who was living with me at the time, and I was fortunate enough to have my godsons living there too. He's like, hey, we're arguing. We debate about stuff, even though we're on the same side. You know, we're like iron sharpens iron. And we're arguing about, he goes, I don't see people in the streets. I go, people are in the streets, they're mad. He goes, I don't see it. Next day, he goes, you want to go to this recall event? I go, yeah, I want to go to this recall event. We go down to a recall event in Long Beach, and we go down with this, like, we come up with this list of Gavin Newsom's top 10, you know, greatest hits, right? And as we get down there, we're handing it out to people who are signing, and then, you know, one of the ladies there gives me a microphone. I was like, do you want to talk about it? I was like, and I just start going down the statistics. I'm like, he's releasing 150,000 criminals. Where do you think they're going to be? You know, he's making it harder for us to live, like, to shut us down. We don't need to be all this stuff.
Right.
And I'm just shaking. And that energy is in me. And Next week we go to Huntington Beach. Next week we start going to the Beverly Hills rally. Like the first day we were there,
Wow.
we marched down the street of Rodeo Drive, and I'm just going off again about stats. Joe Biden says this, that, and the other. Yeah. And Matt, that's when I first met MAGA Hulk. And I'm like, I go around, Steven, we hit the corner, and I'm just like shaking. He's like, dude, good job. I'm like, I don't know what happened. And we're coming back up, and this is like when you start really seeing the vitriol of these people, because as we're coming up on the store, Gucci Couture, a sales clerk who happened to be a black woman opens the door as I'm walking by, hands cuffed, and yells, "Coon!" And I go,
wow.
I'm like, what was that? And she said, froze, and everybody stops. Like, what'd she say? What'd she say? I go, tell him what you said. Tell him what you said. And she's like, I'm like, tell him what you said. If you're so brave, please. Wow. And standing behind her was like an Asian woman. And I thought to myself, I wonder if you had a son, would you want some black lady doing that in front of any other race? Because that's how they, don't do this in front of other races. Right. She finally said it, and I was like, there you go. And I walked off. And at that event, I met this one lady who started going. She was like, I'm recording people, and I'm like, hey, why are you out here? She's a beautiful blonde lady, has like a ring the size of, some people's big toenail. Like, it was amazing. And she's standing there. She goes, I'm standing here because the kids need to get back in school. And then she starts getting emotional, like she's going to cry. She goes, because my kids will be fine. I can get tutors, but it's the kids in those poor neighborhoods. And she starts, and I'm sitting here in Beverly Hills going, like, it's just so much more. The heart of the human being, especially those that are close to God, is next level stuff. It's next level stuff.
It's cool.
So I went all in. I started doing more rallies, Beverly Hills every week. Confronted a BLMer there that kind of, threw it in his face. I'm like, yo, what's up with all these deaths in Chicago we don't say anything about?
Yep, that's right.
Then, I get a ticket for doing a recall event in West Hollywood just for being out, because that was the mask ordinance. Give me a $300 ticket.
Goodness.
I come to find out that March of 2021, that back in September, I got I was on the Secretary of State's censored list for social media. So she had me on a list with like me and like of course Trump and PragerU and all these guys.
Wow.
Of 540 pages that Judicial Watch found out in their Freedom of Information Act, I'm on page 24. Like, and it's a picture of me doing the recall of Gavin Newsom, who the Secretary of State at the time works for.
Wow.
Conflict of interest, right?
Yep.
But the cool thing, then, you have all these things like I went to D.C. on the 6th, and like I got raided by the FBI on June 10th. Like, they came in my home, just like a lot of people have heard. And, Nick Searcy's movie, Capital Punishment, talks about going through all that. But it took me back to the first day I ever came to Godspeak, which was like November of 2020. And I wasn't going to church much. I was like, I believed in God for, my recovery. God was important. I needed a higher power, but I wasn't like in the church. And my buddy, my best friend, he was like, yo, you want to go to this church? Apparently they got people were messing with him and all this, that, and the other. I was like, yeah, let's go. I was like, we're going to go that, or we're going to go to Chino Hills to see Charlie Kirk, actually.
Yeah, nice. Yeah.
And he goes, yeah, we should go do that. And he goes, but just to be, clear, like sheriffs, they say to me, give out tickets. And I go, I'm thinking to myself, damn, I don't want a ticket. I don't want a citation. I already got one. And so then I thought to myself, okay, this is an easy one. I go, hey, man, what do you think Jesus would do? He was like, go to that church. I'm like, damn it. All right. Well, so we only came here not because of me, because it's like God would do it. So, and we're here, and I'm debating somebody outside about, it's not your business. Then get the heck out.
So this was 2020, right?
This was 2020. And I'm walking in through the backside, and this older white lady from Arizona, she told me, she goes, I just, drove in today because God told me to come here for a reason. So she's walking in behind me because we didn't know. It's my first time here. We ended up sitting in the outside area. I'm sitting next to my friend and her because she didn't know anybody. After the service, she opens up Ephesians 6 verse I want to say 10, armor of God, or if I'm thinking flipping, I'm not great at it. And so she opens her Bible. She goes, and open yours to here. She goes, you right here, you're going to find somebody who knows the Bible. You're going to need this. She goes, you're going to need this. This is before I knew that I was being censored. This is before I got a ticket for doing, a recall in West Hollywood, before I got raided, before I got all this stuff on social media.
Right.
She was telling me what I'm going to need.
Wow.
And to come back, and I'm looking at this. I remember after the raid and going, that's why she drove in from Arizona.
Wow.
You know, and it's just been amazing from there. And I know some people ask, I've never been arrested. I didn't get arrested, and I wasn't charged. And I'm actually suing the FBI now for violating my first, fourth, and 14th Amendment.
Oh, good for you, dude.
Yeah,
that's awesome.
God is working in my life, my friend. And
that's amazing, man. Good for you.
I'm not a guy with a lot of means, but God has provided me my life with opportunities and situations that were the kind of things as a kid I was like, well, you needed to be in certain like tax brackets just to even try this type of thing.
Yeah, that's right.
And yet here we are. You know? So
that's awesome, dude.
It's been amazing.
That's wonderful.
It's been amazing,
and now you're running for California Assembly.
Yeah.
I want to talk about that in a little bit. But this so this is a pro-life podcast. And, we talk about a lot of issues because so many things kind of relate. But the focus is waking up the church to end abortion.
Yes.
And contending against the culture of death. And that means through politics as well.
Of course.
To end abortion, to protect every unborn child, and to make it illegal at the federal level. And so, with Roe v. Wade getting overturned, wonderful victory, absolutely incredible,
just
unprecedented. Nobody could have predicted it, but it's just the beginning.
Yeah.
And so, but they say about 1 in 4 women have had an abortion. Might be greater than that.
Yeah.
And this issue impacts everyone, whether they've had an abortion or not. Everyone knows people who have arranged abortions, paid for abortions, pressured abortions, stood by and was silent when they should have said something. But the people that we rarely talk about are the men.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, I have to justify my career all the time. You can imagine. You're not a man. Shut up. And to which I say, like, well, that's a dangerous thing to assume in the age of Bruce Jenner.
I'm just saying.
Like
one of the most beautiful women on the planet.
Yeah.
You said now?
Yeah.
It was on the ESPN's cover. You're like,
yep.
What am I supposed to say about a rose?
This is just the la land of secular progressivism.
Oh, it's crazy. I don't fall for it anymore.
You don't get to, you can't assume someone's gender if a man wants to compete against women, but you can assume someone's gender if they're a pro-life male speaker, in which case they need to shut up.
Yes, and and that's when they know what a woman is too.
Yeah.
So all of a sudden it comes back.
But now, of course, you're to the left. You're even worse, Siaka, because
I'm black.
You're a man and you're black.
Yeah, I should want to kill all my people.
Yeah, exactly. So you're a traitor to your own race, right? But then, of course, they attack pro-life women. What do they say to pro-life women? You're a traitor to your own gender. It's unreal. So anyways.
It's crazy.
All that being said, the thing we don't talk about the most generally in the abortion conversations is actually the fathers. There was a poll research done by the Guttmacher Institute, which is Planned Parenthood Statistical Research Branch. So the Guttmacher Institute, that's named after Alan Guttmacher, the former president of Planned Parenthood from the 70s. Okay, so that's who the Guttmacher Institute is. They did research on, I think it was from 2007. I can pull it up. It's very easily available online. It's called Reasons U.S. Women Have Abortions. And so among those reasons, some of the most predominant ones were these, Siaka. Was afraid that it would interfere with ability to work or make money. They were having relationship problems. They were being pressured by the man to abort, or they were afraid they wouldn't be able to finish school and be able to get a job. These were some of the most dominant reasons that were given, the highest percentage reasons that were given. You'll notice the common denominator there is the man.
Yeah.
And if the man would step up and say, I'll take 3 jobs if I need to.
Yes.
I'm going to protect that child, and you don't need to worry about a thing, baby.
Yeah.
Right? If men position themselves that way, most abortions wouldn't happen. Most women would say, wow, I have someone with me. They're promising to walk with me, to provide for me, to protect me, to cover me. But most men are silent.
Yes.
Scared. And if
Scared.
they're not silent, they're pressuring the abortion. So either they're like, hey, whatever you choose, I'm out. Hey, whatever you choose. Or worse, they're saying, you're going to kill this. You're going to kill this abortion. And then of course, now we have generations of of post-abortive men for whom abortion has also destroyed their life.
Yes.
But we generally just talk about the women.
Yep.
But to
And
pretend,
barely talk about the women who have been hurt through this.
yeah,
they
that's
don't
right.
want to
But
even
to
talk
pretend
about
like
them.
abortion doesn't negatively impact the fathers is foolish. Of course it does. So, anyways, I wanted you to share a little bit about your story on this because I think it's the one topic that gets the least discussed.
Yeah.
And that's the most tragic because it's actually the men that we need the most on this issue.
Yeah.
If men would wake up, not only could we save Western civilization, but in general, but we could end this great Holocaust.
Seriously, I mean, what do they say? Strong men build great nations.
Oh, yes. So weak men create hard times. Hard times create strong men. Strong men create good times. Good times create weak men. And there you go.
And there we go. And that's where we are. You know, for me, again at the time and how I grew up, I had my first abortion when I was 18, and
so senior year of high school.
This was basically
right between.
Yeah, between. So it was like the end of high school and then going into college, but I didn't find out from her. I found out like probably 6 months later because then she was coming out to California for an internship. And
so you never knew.
I didn't know until I ran into a friend of a mutual friend that we went to high school with in Iowa, and I was like, "Hey, I haven't heard from her for a while." And she's like, "Didn't you hear?" I was like, "What are you talking about?" And we're at a party, and she pulls me out to the balcony, and it's like, "Yeah," she told me, she had an abortion, and it was weird because
how did that hit you at 18?
Because it was already done, and I didn't get a chance to even like think about it. And then from kind of the world you're around,
which of course is its own injustice,
of course,
to not even know as the father,
and even after we kind of became friends again, like it never was talked about.
Yeah, too painful usually.
But because now years later we got in contact, and she's achieved a lot.
Right, but at what cost?
I mean, I don't even want to get into her in that sense because that's not fair to speak about her like that for too long. But there's sadness there, and I just felt like, well, I guess I can say I don't have to worry about my future, because that's what you're told. Your future is going to be over. And I was like, well, I guess I don't have to worry about that. Yeah. And then that was just it. And then you're done, but yet you're not done because it's in your head, and you can push it out, drinking and other women. Yeah. Right, for me. And that put me into when I was 24, before I moved out here, I was with a girl, wasn't serious, caught up in that life, bar hopping all the time, drugs. And that was another situation where another mutual friend told me where I didn't. Again.
Oh my gosh.
He was like, and he told me, this is just how callous that it has become. He was like, oh, yeah. She told me I was like, what? Wow. He goes, yeah. She told me we're hanging out drinking, and she told me she did it. I was like, that's something.
Yeah.
Yep. And that's 2004. First one was 1998. Wow. So I could have like a 22-year-old right now.
Wow.
I could have a little homie that we've gone through stuff together. And it just, I could have a 17-year-old kid right now.
Yep.
And then the last one was at 27, a coworker, and it was crazy, chaotic, but we loved each other. And when it happened, the people we work with, our support system, all were saying get it, including a 50-year-old plus married couple.
Some friends, huh?
I mean, they were like, do this, you're too young, you're not ready, do da-da-da-da. So we split it. And, fortunate for her, I found out years later she ended up having a daughter, so good for her, But you look at those three things and you're just like, with my godsons, they lived with me for 2 years.
Right.
And we homeschooled one of them for that year and a half, 2 years he was there. What I'm willing to do for them, and they're not even my blood.
Right.
And you mentioned it's imperative. It's imperative. Like, it's not like we must and kind of know, it's imperative. Because I've seen moms out there that men stop being quiet. Because those are babies.
That's right.
At the end of the day, it's not Black Lives Matter where some adult made a decision and another adult made a decision. It's not even women's rights where two adults are making decisions. These are people who can't speak for themselves.
Yep.
These are people who want an opportunity to live. These are people who start having a heartbeat, within the first month. These are people who start feeling pain and joy and playing.
Yep.
They just don't have a phone in their hands yet.
Yeah.
So they
Who
don't
will
count.
recognize their father's voice at the moment of birth and their mother's voice.
Because they know.
And
when
not
you're
just
doing
that, but
this.
their mother's presence. There's been studies on this. You hand a newborn and you lay her on another woman's chest who recently had a baby at the hospital, and that baby very well may freak out.
Really?
Now, why?
Well, yeah, because they've been in there.
I thought it wasn't a person. I thought it was just a blob of tissue, or it was a human but not a person. Oh wait, that's what Democrats said about black people in the 1850s: humans but not persons. Whatever.
1/5.
And there's nothing that's fundamental or intrinsic to biology, because real people are not bodies. That's why a man can be a woman, and it's just a pound of flesh. And then it starts some sort of emotional connection with the mother after birth. No, this is all BS. We've known this. No science has ever showed otherwise. Anyways,
well,
so
no, that's why that briefing, what Alito wrote, was so important.
Yep.
Because we got to see their lives just in a court filing. There's a reason why this country is great and how it is.
Yep.
Because there's such a importance on making sure we get it down, we get it locked in and try. Because we're humans, so we're infallible. We're going to make mistakes. And the founders, it was so amazing as I've really learned about the Constitution and starting to learn about the Bible. We've been built to be free, but we have weaknesses in ourselves.
Yep.
We have weaknesses that they exploit, in the sense calling it humanism, that we can be and do whatever we want. But it says in there, God made you perfect.
Yep.
So if they're saying no, you can be whatever you want, and then pushing down them, but just because you may like a pink shirt, that means you're a female now. Back in the 90s, that meant you were gay. And that was the same marketing system that they used. They used the same. That's the one thing that I noticed too that really hit me. I was like, they're using the same marketing system they use for whether it's what people want to call the gay agenda. I don't know what you want to call it, but in order to push that homosexuality was so normalized within groups, and you're like, that number isn't that high, and most people don't know about it. Like, first of all, kids aren't thinking that way at 8 years old. They're not.
That's right.
So now you shift it over to the trans movement, and it's the exact same marketing. It's in their soul. You can't question who they are. They know it when they're really young. Why do you care what goes on in the back of my room anyway? It's the same statement. It's literally the same script.
That's right. Yeah.
And it baffles me. Well, and we have a script too. The difference is, again, it's truth.
Yep.
And now I think we're in a very fortunate time. We're not 70 and like you saw that old vet who was crying.
Yep.
I'm sure he feels like he can't do anything.
Right.
We're at an age where we have to as men.
That's right.
And to watch and we see what's going on here. It's like, no. Like, now it's time for me to run, go in there, for Cole to run, for Patrick Gibson to get in there, for Barry Jacobson, for Lori Mills. People are getting in there because we moved far away from the Constitution, not just our elected officials, but us as citizens.
Yeah.
We got, somebody else. I'm not going to run because it's too corrupt. All right, then what the hell do we? Sorry, then what do we expect to happen?
Yep.
And so I that's why I chose. I'm like, I am going to put it all out there because.
Well, I'm glad you reached your line, because many people still have not, and it's shocking that some people still have not. With bills pushing to use California taxpayer dollars to pay for the babysitting of perhaps Arizona women who come to California to kill their children.
Wow.
So you're
all this money,
and
though,
their travel expenses and their abortion.
All this money.
So children matter enough to have state-funded babysitting while their mother kills their child. But children don't matter enough to, I guess, not be killed in the womb. I mean, like, this sounds like I'm pitching some dystopic novel that takes place 200 years from now.
Yeah.
But it's like that's just one
right
example.
now.
But all this stuff is happening right now. They're pushing for fourth trimester abortions, AB 2223.
Yep.
Make sure that women and abortionists can't be charged for miscarriage abortions or perinatal death. Oh wait, the term perinatal refers to up to 28 days after birth.
Yep.
I mean, like, it's just so
Which
unreal.
starts 6 months in.
I'm glad you've reached your line.
Yep.
But I want you to talk, as we wind down, Siaka, I want you to talk a little bit about your experience coming out as this bold pro-life voice and conservative voice, Christian voice, in North Hollywood as a black man. Like, just talk a little bit about your experience. I mean, you actually were just at a pro-life rally in Santa Monica, a few days ago. I mean, so share some of that. Share some about your experience in general, and then I want you to talk about your race, because I think it's important for people to hear this perspective, because the main perspective and narrative that we hear, of course, is that black people are all for Black Lives Matter, all for abortion. No. They're basically all campaigning for Lori Lightfoot. And this could never be further from the truth, actually. But we don't hear the other side enough.
Well, and thank you for that, because people like Kanye West, people love him or hate him. He did an interview in Esquire where he talks about this.
Yeah,
there is a terrorism that is done towards black folks from black people and from white liberals that tell you who you can and can't be. That's just a fact.
Yep.
The president that they just voted for said, I'm not the skin color if I don't vote for him.
If you can't figure out if you're for me or Trump.
Yeah, that's right.
Then
that's right.
Ain't black.
And ain't, because I can't say because you are not.
Yeah.
Because then that's not black. That's not black.
He said that to Charlemagne.
Charlemagne the God, and that's a whole nother.
Which is crazy. Isn't that a crazy thing to say? He didn't say if you vote for Trump. He said if you can't even
figure
like
out.
You're still weighing your options.
Like
then you're not black.
Like, listen, dummy. This is what you do here. This
is the same Joe Biden who said when running against Mitt Romney. He said they're going to put y'all back in chains. I mean, and then about Obama, he said you had the first clean, articulate black man. I mean, it's like, and then of course
you're working for the guy.
Yeah.
What
but if
doing?
you're pro-life, then they go racist.
Racist.
It's like, wait. I want to protect black babies and the women. I'm a racist. But the guy who says Republicans want to put you back in chains,
the guy
and you're
who
not
actually
black if you're a Republican, he's just what?
How does that work? No, the guy who literally, and we've seen the videos going around where he crafted the '84 crime bill.
That's right.
That put people in jail for crack cocaine use twice as much and harsher than those who had just cocaine, which happened to be a poor problem, which poor problems are more in these certain areas. So it's like, this is what this guy's doing. As for me, I did the PragerU video, which is called Stories of Us. I talked about the stuff going on in Hollywood. Yeah. And being outspoken, which you're brave and bold and yes queen when you're doing it and saying that some guy touched you and BLM and kill all the babies. Everyone's like, yay, that's brave.
Yeah.
And then I come out and say it, and I one of the earliest things I got on Instagram was somebody saying, as a guy from college that I went to school with, and these other guys come in, and one guy's like, does he forget that he's actually African, that he's Liberian, that he's African? Like, what is he doing? And I'm like, to one guy, I'm like, before you talk, where's that $50 you owe from the fantasy football league 4 years ago you never paid? So don't open your mouth. Everybody's got skeletons, brother. Like, calm down. And so that was just like a light thing, but like the vitriol, like your mom's a this, that, she should have aborted you. You're a, monkey, coon, anything you can, any wild way you can think about it, they sent it.
Yeah.
And I do something great because I put on my stories, tag them, and put it up. I'm like, hey, check it out.
Yeah.
Now with the industry, I stopped getting auditions.
Yeah, wow.
My manager of 6 years, she at least was kind enough to write me an email, which was saying, because of cutting stuff down and we're moving on. But mind you.
So you immediately started feeling the repercussions.
Oh, yeah. And it was like, my agent at the time didn't even contact me. We have this website called Actors Access, which you can submit for work. Okay. And I just got a form email. Ding! You're not with so and so anymore. And I'm like, what? And that was it. And
I appreciate you saying all this because some people don't understand how real cancel culture is.
Oh, yeah.
Like there's a reason why it's called culture.
Yeah.
Because it literally is a culture.
Yeah.
Of canceling.
I mean, they go
dissidents from the regime. Yeah.
They go out their way. There was a guy from the rooms of AA that reached out to me to tell me how much of a fool I was. We're all laughing at you and stop shucking and jiving for the white man. And he's a white guy dating a black girl. And he's in a room of AA where you're not supposed to be, judgmental of each other.
Right. There you go.
Finds me on Instagram to tell me all this stuff because I'm not. Eddie's from Chicago. I'm not subscribing to this. I'm like, we're killing each other in Chicago, and you're worried about me taking a stand for pro-America?
Yeah, that's right.
Like they have no. There is no shame on any from any one in that side. But more importantly than the stuff that they've done, because those cancellations happened, and I'll be honest with you, once, like I said, that summer, I made a decision like, all right, I'm going to be loud.
Yeah.
Whatever is going to happen is going to happen. So I kind of let go of really feeling bad about it. But what hurt the most wasn't the industry. It was family and friends that you believe know you.
Whoa.
People that you've known, from day one of being out here.
Wow.
People you've known since you were 7 years old.
Friends and family, huh? Turn
Friends
against
and
you
family.
too.
Turn their back on you, and they're
Wow.
nope, I'm out. You don't want to know anything. And then when I got raided, brother, like
Nothing, huh?
I mean, the best thing I ever got was one surrogate cousin. We talked, and first thing he said is like, "I just want to apologize for not reaching out."
Dang.
And I go, "Hey, man, thank you for just saying that."
Yeah,
because
wow.
that's all you want.
Yeah.
You don't want to sit there and feel like you're on an island. That's the whole
Yep.
cancel culture, right?
Yep.
Sorry, I get emotional about it because
Yep.
it's like, you believe you've gained some type of relationship with people over time
Wow.
and going through ups and downs.
Well, Scripture
lessons
talks about
where-
that, right? Brother will turn against brother.
Yeah. Yeah.
Daughter against mother, friend against friend.
And it just
for standing for something that would have, far from being controversial, would have been taken as the normal position
50 years ago.
50, 60 years ago, yeah.
people who are alive today, it would have been normal for them back then, but now
Yep.
you and most God-fearing people are somehow the problem.
Yep.
But Seth, honestly, man, and I said this to my fiance the other day, the people that have come into my life that have filled this void,
Yeah, that's right.
it actually shows me the truth of like how I should be moving for companions in my life anyway.
Yep. When you stand for truth and you do so unapologetically, you always find new friends
And
new family,
solid.
people who actually support you.
Solid. I can send people stuff. We can go through our issues, and
Yep.
it's like it's not over. Like in Hollywood, it's be careful of how you even breathe because you may not get another chance to get back in the room to maybe audition for a role to maybe get the part.
Siaka, they're tolerant.
Yeah, well, can't you tell? My story tells it all, right? No. So it's just
So talk about you starting to speak on pro-life and then your campaign and then we'll say goodbye. But you it was awesome. You were bravely speaking out and praying with us for our prayer walk outside the Ventura Planned Parenthood, and then you went down to an event, a pro-life event in Santa Monica, and you were on a megaphone. I think I saw a clip of it or something. Some angry white woman was yelling at a very peaceful black man. There was a time when that would have been called racism, but I guess.
But not when she was just not. I was gonna say she was missing the gorilla mask, but that wouldn't have mattered.
I mean, like
either.
literally screaming, like it looked like she was Legion. I mean, it was like gnarly.
Yeah, no, you.
What were you saying?
That's the
what
thing.
Were you saying? What caused her to lose her?
Well,
mind?
I first of all just talking because she was screaming, "You don't have a uterus, you can't speak." And I basically was pointing out just the pain that because there was another 4 or 5 group of girls, probably like 18 to 20, who were there screaming at us too.
Yeah.
And I was just pointing out, like, look at the pain, guys. It's like, this is why we need to fight, not just because they're going to kill, but look at the pain that they're in.
Yeah.
She's screaming at me. And Seth, I thought about this days later. The octave and how she was screaming was not natural, bro. And I'm not saying, oh, it was a demon. I don't know. But I do know it was coming from this place that you can only say, well, if she was in a position where someone was trying to kill her, it would sound
totally
like this.
demonic. Yeah,
it was a whole different thing.
The church doesn't understand that, and they certainly don't treat it. They certainly don't treat it or respond to it like it's demonic. They always talk about spiritual warfare. Their war is not against flesh and blood; it's against the spiritual principalities and authorities in the heavenly realm. And then it's like, dude, here's Moloch manifesting in your city.
Yes, what do you do?
This is the spirit of Moloch manifesting in your city, and you go, we're not political. It's
You're
like,
like,
well, then you don't care about spiritual warfare, dude.
Not at all, because that's the law that we're going to live under.
Yeah.
Right? And so she's out there, but they were screaming, and it didn't matter because I just told part of the story I told you here, why it's important for us, especially young men, to step up for this fight because we're losing us. The fact that the black population has been stagnant since 1973.
Yes. Black America has been way under replacement rate for some time.
For 50 years almost.
You know, our pastor, Rob McCoy, put it in a way I'd never heard before the other day in his sermon right after the fall of Roe. And he said something like, in 30 years, you're going to have to go to the Smithsonian to see a black person. And that's always been the agenda, bro.
Yeah, I know.
That was Sanger's agenda. Wow. That was Lothrop Stoddard's agenda. That was Madison Grant's agenda. Wow. That was, Alfred Kinsey was a racist too. But I mean, all these, I call them pontiffs of progressivism. Mm-hmm. But these eugenicists, racists, the people who have crafted sex ed, which is today's just pornography and an educational
which they passed.
binder,
They passed all
to
that
sexualize young people. But Sanger specifically, her organization was called the American Birth Control League before it was renamed Planned Parenthood. One of her board members, I just shared this at the church I preached at on Sunday, Siaka, and you probably know this, but for those who don't, I'll say it anyways. Lothrop Stoddard was a board member of the American Birth Control League. Lothrop Stoddard had done a tour in Germany in the early 1940s, interviewing people like Heinrich Himmler, including Hitler himself, who was given a wonderful, beautiful preferential treatment. He wrote a book called the Rising Tide of Color Against White World Supremacy. That's the title of Lothrop Stoddard's book, Siaka, The Rising Tide of Color Against White World Supremacy. He was on the board of the American Birth Control League, later renamed Planned Parenthood. Sanger invited Lothrop Stoddard to speak at a population conference in New York before it was renamed Planned Parenthood. Wow. Lothrop Stoddard had already run a concentration camp in German-controlled Southwest Africa, where he had starved, experimented on, and murdered native Africans. Knowing this, Sanger invites him to speak at her population conference and later makes him a board member. I could go down other people, but that's one example of not just Sanger's friends and allies, but her freaking board members. Wow. And his book was one of the books, along with Madison Grant's book, also a Sanger ally, named The Passing of the Great Race. These are two books that Hitler was reading in jail after his failed coup attempt in Munich. And he wrote fan mail to Madison Grant, another American eugenicist, and specifically he called Madison Grant's book, quote, his Bible. And much of the ideas of American eugenicists were used to craft Nazi eugenic legislation in Germany by Hitler. And most of those figures in America that contributed to Hitler's agenda and his legislative agenda were allies, friends, or board members for Margaret Sanger. Wow. So that's just a very quick history of this. So like this, my point is this: it's actually all the same agenda. It's the Sanger agenda is still here. You survived Sanger, but her goal is that no more black people would. And she once said that the goal of her Negro Project was the, quote, gradual suppression, elimination, and eventual extinction of defective stocks, those human weeds which threaten the blossoming of the finest flowers of American civilization. And when she said human weeds, Siaka, she was referring to black people and the mentally and physically disabled. She didn't like them reproducing, and that's eugenicism, right? And so this is the history of this. Wow. And so for you as a black man to get off the Democrats' plantation and stand for life and stand for liberty and stand for the flourishing of the black race by standing against abortion should not just be a brave and courageous act. It should actually be the normal response to the culture of death. But far from it being the normal, you're castigated as the black face of white supremacy and Uncle Tom Coon,
forgetting where I'm coming
because
from.
you're doing the most basic thing possible. And so,
it's
just
wild
to frame this like that's, and so that's why I'm so proud of what you're doing. And now you're running for California Assembly.
Well,
and you know what? If we're gonna play this stupid race conversation, which I hate because I don't care about skin color, but if we're gonna play that freaking game, then at least let's own them at their own game.
Let's own it.
And let's get brave, godly, pro-life black men and women in positions of political power, and stick a big bird back into the faith of the secular progressive culture and say, hey, Black Lives Matter, right?
Well, this is just like they did with the Hispanic lady that won down in Texas. Right? You saw how they were like, like they didn't want to celebrate it at all.
So tell us about your race.
And that's one of the reasons why I'm running is actually because of AB 2223.
Good.
Because I saw what they were doing around the country in Colorado, DC, Virginia, Maine. And 2223, 866, giving the kids that medical autonomy from their parents, testing kids weekly, all these bills that they were using to come after the children. Then not to mention the bill they passed in 20.
Always go after the kids.
Always after the kids. When they lowered the basically
12-year-olds can get an abortion in California now without parental consent and charge it to their parents' insurance plan, and the insurance company can't tell the parents.
They can't tell the parents.
Again, I'm not pitching you a dystopian novel for 2200. This is happening
facts
in
right now in California.
Yep.
And the facts that
you
these
can't get
legislators
Advil or go on a field trip without parental consent as a 12-year-old in California, but you can kill your child, your parent's grandchild.
Well, and that's why.
Hey, it's just follow the science, Siaka. It's just science.
Just science. It's just a clump of cells. It's just a clump of cells. cells. You can wipe it off. We're done. But that's why I want to run. That's why I am running. I'm there because I'm like, and I've looked at my opponent, Luz Rivas. She voted for the last 4 years up and down exactly with the left.
Yeah, of course.
And we have a super majority.
Yep.
And this is something that's very important to me. I want to share with the people watching is that if we never fight in areas, if people are saying an area is too blue or whatever to try, we got to look at what the left's done. They've never gone into an area and said it's too red.
That's right, exactly.
They've never done that, right?
You're right. Exactly.
And they sit there and we have.
Yeah, they don't care.
Georgia's what
they
now?
Don't care
blue?
if the odds are against them.
Not at all.
You're exactly right. Something we need to learn from the left. They just try over and over again. Beto O'Rourke, Stacey Abrams.
Over.
They lose and they lose and they lose and they just go run again.
But we sit there and we say, well, LA is too blue.
Yep.
The people in my district are pissed off, man.
Yeah, good.
They're angry, bro.
Yeah.
And I go and I did a community event where I just was talking about the bills. That's all I was doing.
Yep.
And people were like, "What?
Sharing information.
What? What?" I'm like, "Yeah, this is what they're bringing to you."
Yeah, the normal people are not on board with it.
So if we can't look in there, and whether it's like we need our Zuckerbergs and Soros is pumping money into this because if we're playing, I look at it as a sports team. Right now, they put all their money into good or bad over and over and over in order to, we're going to crack this wall one way or the other. On the other side, doesn't. Yeah, so if we're gonna be on the field, they got all the
corporate
new
America is now just woke America.
Yeah, and now they're getting that
corporate
money.
America with rich Christians or rich patriots in it don't start caring as much about their good beliefs as the other side does about their bad beliefs.
Exactly.
Then we're never going to win.
Exactly.
So tell us your website again. North Hollywood. Guys.
North Hollywood.
Unreal.
So,
I mean, gosh,
in
you need
LA
to win.
County, LA County. So it's District 43. That's Pacoima, Sylmar, Panorama City, Sun Valley, Mission Hills, North Hills, and San Fernando. And you can go to my website at Siaka FOR assembly.com. We need funding. I need to be able to get flyers, and we're working against the incumbent machine. But I guarantee you, people in that district, like everywhere else, are upset and they're looking for something different. Let's help me get that message out there.
Yeah. Amen. That's awesome, bro.
Yeah,
well, thank you, Siaka.
Thanks
for sharing your story, man.
Thank you for having me on. I appreciate this.
Yeah,
I really
absolutely,
do.
bro. We're proud of you, and we're praying for that red, righteous wave.
Yes, sir.
And, Seth, did you just conflate Christianity with politics?
Yes.
Yes, I did,
Yes.
because politics is the art of the possible. It's how we decide how we're going to live together. And the question is not whose morality, or question is not if there will be a morality or if there will be a dominant religion. The question is whose morality and whose religion.
Exactly.
We're all fundamentally religious beings.
Always.
No, secular progressivism, it's a non-religious, atheistic. No, they function more dogmatically and religiously than most Christians do. They have liturgies, they have sacraments.
Yes.
The vaccine and abortion are their sacraments. Like they have all of these religious structures. They just slap the word, science over it. So we're all religious beings. We're all going to have a morality. The question is just whose. Why not the one that's built this country? Why not the one that provided the rights that we take for granted and are no longer willing to contend for? So, all right, Siaka for assembly.com, District 43. Guys, go support him. Follow him on social media. If you don't do it, then the good people won't win. And that needs to start changing. Thank you, brother.
Thank you, guys.
Thanks for tuning into the show today, guys. Head on over to iTunes, Spotify, YouTube. Give the show a rating and review. It really drives it up the charts. The podcast continues to grow. And, most people don't want to tune into a pro-life podcast, but more people are now because of Roe v. Wade getting overturned and reproductive rights getting compromised. and there are a lot of people on the fence in the middle who don't know what they believe about abortion or are persuadable. And this podcast helps to serve that tool and inspire people to stand in a day like today. If you want to follow me on social media, go to Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, TikTok, and I guess we should add some more on there. And if you want to sign up for my newsletter or see my speaking gig, go to SethGruber.com. And to become an ally of the White Rose Resistance, the new pro-life organization I founded that will take back the culture of life against the culture of death, go to www.thewhiterose.life, thewhiterose.life. Until next week, I'm Seth Gruber, and this is Unaborted.